everyone, Tori the Crafty Girl here, and today I wanted to share with you a video about pricing your items. Now, I've talked about this a number of times for many different projects out there. Very recently I did a video on the viral Taylor Swift granny square dress and how the price that they were asking for it was essentially unethical. There's no way you can make it for that price. And so I wanted to talk today about a new obsession that I have, and it's with this, these granny square crocs. It's a great way to use up yarn. It makes something ugly adorable, and I've had lots of requests to purchase them. But before I even consider listing them for sale, there are a number of things that I do to make sure that it's worth my time. Your time is valuable, and you are absolutely worth the money. As a creative, we can question ourselves. We can think that, this isn't that good a quality, so I shouldn't ask that much. And there are standards you have to meet, obviously, but I'm a perfectionist, and so I never think my creations are good enough. But I do want to share with you the way that I'm breaking this down so you can see why something like this might cost you about $100 plus. So let's dive into the spreadsheet. So a long time ago, I created this Etsy online profit calculator. I think this one was from 2022. And essentially what it helped me do was, as I entered my production costs, shipping costs, and all of the Etsy fees, I was able to logically create a price point that made sense. You still need to go out and compare to others that are out there, make sure that you're not too inexpensive or too expensive, but you need to start at the beginning. So the first thing that I actually have broken down, this doesn't change. In fact, this hasn't changed since 2022. This is the packaging costs. So if you're going to be packaging your items for any reason at all, you definitely want to make sure that you take every little bit into consideration. So if you're going to be shipping them, what do they need to come in? Or even if you're just doing markets and you need to have something like a bag to put them in, you need to take that into consideration. So as we look at the packaging cost calculator, for me, honestly, the total packaging costs per item, whether I'm selling online or without shipping, is pretty cheap. It's 35 cents per item if I'm doing shipping. And the reason there's a difference between whether I'm shipping or not is because if I'm shipping, I'm going to be printing out an invoice, and I'm also going to be including business cards, additional little things that I wouldn't necessarily give out at an in-person market. For sales that don't include any shipping, that's going to be about 18 cents per item. So in the grand scheme of things, that part of the process or that part of the expenses isn't significant at all. And again, I did just want to share with you some of the things that maybe you haven't thought of to actually charge for. So obviously, if you have business cards, if you use a thermal printer or a regular printer, shipping bags, paper, if you're going to use any sort of shipping paper. I used to do a lot of flower seeds in bags, and that's what I sent out as kind of a little bonus gift in my packages. Twine, because I would tie my items together, stickers that I would make or that I bought, and then also newsprint paper to stuff it to make sure it doesn't get moved around. Now, I tend to purchase things that are as environmentally friendly as I possibly can, or I reuse things, or I buy them secondhand. But this is all just the standard prices. Again, they haven't changed since I first created the spreadsheet way back. This is probably from 2021. Okay, so now the big thing. How are we going to decide on how much we're going to charge for, say, something like this? Well, let's start at the beginning. So how much does this item cost? Whether you are upcycling something that you purchase secondhand, maybe you are just using something in your own closet, that might be a cost of zero, or if you're going to purchase something new. So for example, for the crochet clogs, so if you're going to be purchasing them used, you'd see here I have $10 down here, and that is because this pair right here that I had made, this pair of Crocs, I paid $10 for at Goodwill. So you definitely want to take that in consideration. Now, I would actually make that a little bit higher because there's tax here in Spokane, Washington, in the state of Washington. So it's about almost 10%. So I should probably include that as well. But for the sake, for the ease of figuring out your price, let's just go with $10 for those. And then I have another line here if I were to purchase them new. Now these also vary. So this pair right here I did find brand new at TJ Maxx on clearance, and I paid about $17 with tax for those. So those are variable. Okay, those are the things that we can control price point wise. And then I also have one, just I can enter the price manually. Again, this is just so that I can keep my brain, my ADHD brain, organized. Then I need to take into consideration all of the things that go into making this product. So for like this pair right here, it's pretty simple. It's yarn and it's thread. Yarn and thread. Oh, and no, this one's yarn and thread because I didn't use glue on this pair right here. I did use glue on the other pairs. I kind of adjusted my pattern. So you need to take all of those things into consideration. So in this case, because I'm using cotton yarn, they do tend to, run a little bit more expensive than the typical polyester or synthetic yarns. Also, I had to go buy new yarn so that I had the colors I wanted. But if you're using yarn that's already in your stash, you may not even need to take that into consideration. But I will say you did spend money on it at some point, so think about that. Then of course glue, thread. So if you get branded labels made or if you make your own, I think I had some made a long time ago and they were about 53 cents a piece. So you can include those if you're going to use them. And then I also have a line item for accessories, etc. And the reason I've included that is because if you're going to add any little, baubles or anything like these little charms, you definitely want to make sure that you're charging for those because they cost you money. And you definitely want to make sure that that is part of the overall price. Okay, now, one other thing you'll see on this page right here, I do have labor costs in here. So labor costs is, to me, non-negotiable. So right now, as I look at the production costs for these shoes, let's put the shoes in here because I don't have the cost of the shoes happening right now. Let's say we'll go back to this pair. We'll focus on this one right here. So those, let's say that we did $11 and we had one unit at $11. Okay, again, that you can adjust. I already got them, I already purchased them, but maybe you got them from a friend or something like that. Maybe that cost is $0. So there is a tiny little bit of wiggle room right there. For the yarn, there's not really a lot of wiggle room. You needed the yarn, you put the yarn in, not very flexible. So as I mentioned before, the other thing that's not very flexible is labor costs. And this is where a lot of people, sell themselves short. So right now we were at $35.35. So the total cost right now of production is $35.35, and that does include packaging costs on the high end of 35 cents. So we're at $35.35 right now, and if I were just to say, okay, cool, so it's $35.35, if I ask $50, I'm still gonna make like $15. Wrong. That is absolutely wrong, because your labor costs, how long does it take you to make your product? So these, they may not look like they take a long time, but they do take about, I'm going to say about 3 hours on average. And that is, for me, the crochet part is pretty quick. I can probably get that done in about, let's say 2 hours and 15 minutes, maybe less than that if I'm really focusing on it, but it does take a bit of time there. The longest piece for me with this project is putting these on the shoes, because if you're going to be stitching them or if you're going to be gluing them, both of those processes take so much time to make sure you're accurate, that you're not making, those mistakes, and it just takes time to get them right. So that's where I typically spend at least 45 minutes to an hour putting these together. So for me, on average, just with the basic, and this doesn't include the bow, that would be extra. And again, you need to include that in your cost analysis. So for just this, it would probably take realistically about 3 hours. So with that, I do charge $20 an hour for my creative skills. I find that is a fair number. It reflects, my skill level, and I think that for me, that's the right number for me. I would say you have to think about if this is something you're doing as a business. Again, don't just make it $5 or $10 an hour because you feel like you're going to ask too much. Your time is worth money. So when we look at that, if we're doing 63 hours, right, that's 180, 60, 60, 120, 60, 80, yes. So that's $61 in labor. So that gives us a total of $96.55. And this is before we've even priced them to sell. This doesn't include any fees that are associated, whether you're selling in person and getting, credit card charges or booth fees, or if you are selling on Etsy and getting those type of fees. This is just kind of right now, this costs about almost $100 just as is. Okay, so let's go down to breaking this down. And this is, for me, I think the most impactful, especially when folks ask for me to make something for them. So let's talk about this. We'll go with that same example that we just did here. So we have $24.35. That is the production cost without shoes or labor. Then we have our shoe cost. In this case, we decided that we went with $11. So let's go back. Okay, we'll do $11. And then our labor was $61.20. Actually, it's only $60. I don't know why this math is wrong. So it's $60. Okay, so production cost $24.35, shoe cost, which is variable, $11, and labor is $60. So right here, $100. Purchase price. If you say, I'm only going to charge $100 here, okay, so I'm going to charge $100 for these shoes, and I'm going to charge $8 shipping. For me, it's about $8 to ship. For these, they don't weigh very much, luckily. Then total with shipping is $108. Now, let's talk about fees. So this is where you also want to think about profit. So transaction and processing fees, this is Etsy, folks. $25.86 is how much those transaction and processing fees are going to be for me. And this is dependent on the listing fee, the customer, if they pay with a credit card, we have to pay with a fee. If your, listings are promoted, you have to pay a fee. There are a lot of fees over on Etsy. The benefits are they collect taxes on your behalf. So for me, that's a huge benefit. And most of the things I sell on Etsy are digital patterns. So I don't usually have any of those, like a shipping fee or anything like that. But it is something to keep in mind. We already figured out the production costs. Those are the total costs. We need to subtract that as well. And then in this case, let's say we are not going to provide free shipping because, we're a small business. We're not going to provide free shipping. However, let's say you run a promo and you decide, the holidays are coming up. Let's go ahead and give the folks free shipping. So when you do that, you can see your total profit for this pair is going to be $38.79, minusing all of the production costs, the fees, everything. And for me, that makes sense. That is worth my time, $40 per pair. I enjoy doing it. Now, it may take time. If I did 3 pairs a day and I made $40, that's still not enough to live on a daily basis. But I am also not doing this as a full-time maker, okay? So I just wanted to share with all of you in a nutshell, when you are thinking about how much should my items cost, and you're doing some research and you see other makers out there and you think, oh my gosh, they're asking $150 for that, or they're asking $110 for a pair of upcycled Crocs. Why? Well, now you know the why. So when you're doing your research for how much you should ask for your items, these are all the things I want you to take into consideration. Remember, you are special. You are valuable. Your work is worth what you think it's worth, and it's also worth what others will pay for it. So don't feel bad. For me, I always need the numbers to back it up so I can get my emotions out of it. That's pretty much how I came up with doing it this way. I think a lot of people do use a similar method. And again, for me, it's just one of those, let's take the emotion out of it. This is strictly business. And it's something you should be considering every time you place any items for sale. So that's it, everybody. Hopefully you like this content. If you have other questions, let me know in the comments. And until next time, see ya!